Hello and welcome to Design Basics. In this video, we're going to discuss holes and how to design them. The first way is going to be using the extrude cut. The second is using the hole feature. I'm also going to discuss some options that are used in the hole feature, but to start off with, we're going to make a sketch and we're going to make a circle for the hole. I'm going to make it 1 inch in diameter. I'm going to make sure that it is centered to the center point, as you can see here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dimension from the center point to the edge of the part to be 1 inch. I'm just going to make it equal to the diameter. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it's a good rule of thumb. Again, you don't have to follow this if you don't want to, but it's a good rule of thumb to have from the center point to the edge equal to the diameter. This will always allow you to have a good amount of material between the edge of the hole to the edge of the part. If you want to go less, feel free to do that, but just be careful as it might change the strength of your part. So now that we're done, we're just going to do an extrude cut using the cut feature, and I'm just going to choose a distance of all and go OK. Now that that's done, it's pretty simple. Next, what we're going to do is another sketch, and we're going to use the point or center point function in the sketch. I'm going to draw 3 circles or 3 points for different holes. I'm going to make sure that they are constrained with the center. And then I'm just going to do a quick dimension. I'm going to make the first one, let's say, 2.625. Make the second one 1.5 inches. I'm going to make the last one, let's say, 2.5. I'm going to finish the sketch, and now I'm going to use the hole feature. So the first thing I'm going to actually do, before I start using the hole feature, is I'm going to press Control and click the last 2 holes here, so that I'm only using the 1 point. And I'll be going into more detail as to why I'm doing this. But to start off with, we're going to take a look at what the hole feature does with the drilled hole feature. As its name says, it's definitely using the ideas of machining in its principles for it. So as you can see, there's a straight hole, and then there's a taper, or an angle. This is to be considered for a drill bit, because typically when you machine, you're going to have that angle. But for 3D printing, you don't really need it. If you want it, feel free to keep it, but usually I just go to the flat and make it flat if I'm going to have it at a distance that doesn't go through the whole thing. The next thing I can do is I can change this to, let's say, 2.5 inches, so it doesn't go through the whole piece, but it's still there. So now that we have that done, we have our second hole done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go to the tree here. I'm going to press down arrow on the hole. I'm going to right click the sketch, and now I'm going to go to share sketch. So the reason why I'm doing this is now I can do the holes for the other 2 with the exact same sketch. It's a really handy feature to use, especially if you have certain geometries that fit together, because then if you make a change, it'll actually go across all the features that are using that one sketch, as opposed to using compounded sketches and having to change each one. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do another hole. Again, I'm going to click Control, press Control, and then click, so I only have the 1 hole. And now we're going to use the Counterbore or spot face feature. These are one and the same. The only difference is that for machining, they do a spot face to have a flat surface for a bolt, so that it has an even surface to grab onto. It's not very common, but in certain circumstances it's needed. But a Counterbore is the same idea. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the information in here to work. So the first option I have is the diameter of the Counterbore itself. So I'm going to make this actually 1.5 inches. It then asks me what's the depth I want. I'm going to make that 1/2 inch, just choosing options here. I'm then going to make the entire hole 3 inches to go through the part. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to be 0.75, just because. So now that you can see this, you can see that there is a step down and then the hole goes through. This is typically used for bolts that you want to be flush to the surface so it doesn't protrude on the top. The only other thing that you'd want to consider when doing this is make sure to figure out the size of the socket that the bolt would be grabbed with, so that you can make it the Counterbore hole that size plus at least a 1/16 or 32nd, so you can fit that socket in there to torque it. And that's essentially what you do for that feature. And then click OK. So we're going to go to the last feature here, which is going to be the Countersink hole. It's very similar in ideology of the Counterbore. The only difference being this has a tapered angle at the top and then it goes straight down. This is for a specialty type bolt that typically sits flush to surfaces by using the angle itself. So essentially, it's using the same information as a Counterbore, the only difference being that it has the overall diameter of the top, an angle, which is the typical angle for those special bolts. You choose the overall distance, and then of course the diameter. So once you're finished, you click OK, and now you have both of those features done. The nice thing about having a shared sketch as well is I can change these dimensions on the fly. So if I wanted to make this, let's say, 2 inches away from the center point, I can now do that. If I wanted to make this, let's say 2.5, I can change that as well. And it'll update it automatically, and the features won't clash, essentially. So hopefully that helped. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Otherwise, this is Tyler with 3D Printer Store, and I hope you have a great day.